Welcome to the Family Office, planning for the people who matter most.
I want to shift gears if we can, man. And we're talking about, you talked earlier about people who say great words and they can move people, but it's really the actions that matter. One guy that we've talked about who's been in the news recently is Zohran Mamdani. And in New York, there's been 3 other people who have been elected into the primary, 2 of them which are self-prescribed Democratic Socialist of America. So we call that DSA. So I wanted to get your take on that, man. And what the whole Mamdani effect of being able to have the gravitational pull to bring other people who have controversial titles and win primaries, man. That's a pretty big deal.
Well, before I go into that, I just want to touch on one thing. And I think you do have a good point there. And I think that everyone should have that point where you said, when you talk about America, you put it in a lens of morality, right? And you're right. I do that a lot. And I think that I do that because you ought to have some pride for your country or defiance for your country. But
I agree with that.
I just think that if you look at the two glasses, or if you're weighing it out, the scales, right? Mm-hmm. If you're weighing out 2 scales, I talk about America, or I take that default for America, that default position for America, because the ideal of America is you're innocent until proven guilty. But more so than that, Len, to put more weight on that, I think that if you put all the BS that America has done and you put all the good stuff that America has done and you put them side by side and you weigh them, I tell you right now that I firmly believe the good stuff far outweighs the bad stuff.
Okay.
And I can say that with very much confidence, because that's how I feel. That's what I've seen. It's what I've researched. It's what I've been educated on in the education system. So I think if you take that default, that's the default of America. And having spent no more time on that, it's
a strong argument.
I wanted to come from that perspective just so you kind of understand why, because you're right. I do constantly come from that perspective. And I felt it necessary so that we understand that, because
and I think that's good for debate, because you and I come from different perspectives, and we need to understand each other's baseline assumptions, because when you understand somebody's baseline assumptions, then it can help you process the merits of their argument better. Because again, to me, any argument is not about winning or losing. It's about understanding and really having a dogged pursuit of truth. And sometimes the truth is subjective and it can be different as it manifests itself based on somebody's lens, but ultimately it's really about seeking truth. So thank you for that, man. That helps me understand your perspective.
Yeah. Seek first to understand, right?
100%.
If everyone can take something from today, it's before you go off on your neighbor or your friend or the person that pissed you off that ran the red light around you or whatever the heck it might be, seek first to understand, right? Yep. I mean, that's just it. The Mamdani thing that's going on right now, this is very interesting. But at the same time, I think it's very obvious, because I think these are cycles. And there's a lot of hysteria around it where it's like, oh my God. And if you go back and you study, these are cycles. The extremist cycles like this happen often, right? And there's a lot of, like right now, I think it's absolutely funny, the whole doom and gloom crowd with the AI stuff. And they just absolutely I can't remember his name right now, Dario and Anthropic and all the fear mongering with AI and, oh my God, and all this stuff. And then AOC jumps on the bandwagon, but then nobody can articulate a point. But the reality is 2 or 3 days later, all these guys put these, please restrict us. And then all of a sudden the free market in other countries that are not putting restrictions just absolutely smash their freaking models within 24 hours. And it's like, dude, you can't contain this kind of stuff now at this point. Someone is going to get an engineer and build their own models now. Like, you're going to have teenagers building models in their basements. Like this is what's going to happen, right? Like when you hear the guys like the chief, who's the chief of Goldman Sachs right now? It's Solomon, right? What's his name? Do you know what I'm talking about? The chief that runs Goldman Sachs right now. When you see this guy get out in the news and say, and the CEO of BlackRock and all these guys that get out in front of all this stuff right now and they say, hey, this is between now and like 2030 or something like that is the last time that real people are going to have a shot. There you go. To make some crazy serious wealth, right? It's true, because you're going to have people that create crazy ass language models that are going to get bought by these big guys. Mm-hmm. That's what they're looking for. So, with the whole getting back to what you're saying with the Mondami thing and everything, it's awesome, but it's never gonna it never lasts, because eventually what happens is this is why I don't think communism and socialism ever will work in America. Okay, because eventually these people that say yay, this is great and all this stuff, eventually what ends up happening is that they end up getting spoiled. And then they stop getting what they want, and they stop, like, the moment someone's internet service is out for more than 24 or 48 hours, good luck to any of those people. It's all going to crash and burn, because we've always seen it in history. It never works. It never can work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because human nature won't allow those types of things to work. Eventually what ends up happening is you're going, dude, I don't want to work, and so is.
Do you think those candidates who won the primaries will end up getting elected, and because they could actually be a part of Congress?
I mean, they may or may not be. They may. I mean, who knows? They might get elected. Mm-hmm. I mean, they might not get elected. But the reality is that you need money. And eventually when they go bankrupt and they can't get money from anywhere else, they're going to go, oh my God, because that's always what happens. It goes bankrupt. Everything always goes bankrupt.
That's always the funny.
As soon as the money goes away, it's like party. It's kind of almost like party's over. Like mom and dad came back, party's over.
That's funny that you bring that up, because it's interesting, because
that's always the end game, right?
The funny game that Gavin Newsom's trying to play right now is, on the one hand, he understands that he has to appease
say something bad about
his base. Hey, man, I told you, I'm seeking truth, man. Like, right. It slices both ways.
I'm messing with you, Len.
So the interesting game that he's playing right now, man, is that on the one hand, he says that the billionaire tax, he's against it. But
he's a billionaire.
He's not a billionaire, but the reason why he's against it is because many of the donors who are going to contribute to his presidential campaign are billionaires. So he's totally against that tax. But what he said, though, is he said, go ahead and vote your conscience, because if you feel that it's a bad idea, then you should vote against it. And so he's trying to play it both ways. And so here's my take on the Democratic Socialist of America movement, because Mamdani ran on free bus fare. He ran on rent freezes. He ran on like government.
And they're doing those things. They did the rent freezes. You just saw that, right? 2 years. I saw that.
I'm going to come back.
Landlords are freaking out.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing is that people in the short term love that kind of thing because of the fact that it doesn't feel like there's a price to pay, because everybody's looking at it from their own myopic perspective. And this is the thing for those of you that are in this audience that ascribe to this idea of socialism. I understand where you're coming from, because sometimes you look at these rich billionaires and they're on their yachts and they're traveling the world, and you're struggling, and it feels like you're just trying to struggle to put food on the table and to pay rent. Both of those things are true, but it's important to understand, though, is that the billionaires that put themselves in that position, who did it the right way, they took enormous risk to start a business. They spent an enormous amount of time with a lot of uncertainty. Many of them struggled for a long time getting no money, working 80 hours a week. And the market said that the product or service they put out there was good enough to give them more back than what they put in. And so they're reaping the benefits. And so many of the beautiful things that we all appreciate is on the backs of people who made tremendous amounts of sacrifices. The video that we're using to tape this conversation, the microphone we're speaking into, the internet that allows you and I that are thousands of miles away to talk in real time under a light that was invented by somebody who failed 10,000 times. There's all of these benefits that we get to live off of. Whereas thousands of years ago, we're hand to mouth, and we have the luxury now to bask in the glory of all of those innovations. And the moment capitalism starts to fail and socialism starts to thrive is the same moment that incentivizes people to stop innovating. And the moment innovation stops, as a society, we start to decline. The only reason why the United States of America can have the luxury to sit in an apartment that is air conditioned and complain about the rent is because somebody took the time and the effort to invent that air conditioner, to understand what Freon meant, and to be able to have enough people to erect that building and put that building that you didn't have to build. So there's got to be a dual appreciation. Now, flip side of it is that the reason why the Democratic Socialists of America have been able to increase their level of popularity is because prices are ridiculously high in New York. Now, it all comes down to economics. It's supply and demand. You have lots of people in a confined space. So let's just say New York, for the sake of argument, let's just say they have 10 million people. Okay. And let's say 2 million of those people are really struggling to have housing. Okay. So you can cry to the government to force the landlords to freeze your rent. But here's the problem. What would happen if you went from having 2 million apartments to 3 million apartments, given the same number of people? The prices of those apartments would come down. But if you take away the builder's ability to build, then what's going to happen? They're not going to be incentivized to build those additional million apartments. So therefore, your prices are going to stay high, and they're going to get worse, because the moment you tell the builders that the rents are frozen, guess what? Freon gets more expensive, wood gets more expensive, labor gets more expensive. And as the costs go up, why are they going to spend extra money when they're not getting more money in? So this whole socialistic argument, if you really understand economics through first principles, it makes no sense. So while I have a heart for the struggling people, because I used to be one, my mom was on welfare for a few weeks and a few months when she got laid off. So I understand what it's like to go to the store and have food stamps. I understand what that life is like. But I also understood economics. And one of the reasons why I made a decision to get out of it is because I didn't want to live that way. So that's a whole nother conversation for another day. But I'll wrap it up and turn it back over to you, Chris, by saying this. Understand economics and understand the difference between capitalism and socialism holistically. And I believe that if you get that understanding, you would never argue for socialism to be any part of this economic system, because no matter what, it's never worked long term anywhere.
To me, the idea is just absolutely ludicrous that anybody thinks that a human being is going to be benevolent for them. Or it's just
it's not human nature. You're right.
It's just, okay, I trust this guy. Like, for example, says we're talking about Mondami. The whole idea and principality of this is to think that a person or a group of, a committee, or whatever we're going to label it, some altruistic name, right? Mm-hmm. The Council for Secure Prosperous of Human Beings Alliance, right? We honestly think that a group of human beings is going to have kind and non-greedy virtues and is going to be benevolent. towards other people, like we really, really believe that. And that's what shocks me so much, because people go in the streets and rally, no kings, but then they want kings to come and look. The only king that all these people need is the king called Jesus Christ. Like they need to go find that king, or Mohammed, or whatever your king is, and go be that king, go be, right? But for me, it's Jesus Christ. So go find that. Go find a non-human benevolence, because you can't rely. I'm saying the word right?
Benevolence. Yeah, benevolence.
You cannot rely on a human being. You can't. I'm sorry. You just can't. You can't, because they're selfish. So that is number one.
Selfish.
Yes. And then number two, it's very clear. And this is why it's so funny, because if you, like, for example, you just listen to AOC talk on something recently, and you just sit there and you go, they clearly, these people, they have no idea how economics work. Like you just said, Len, they don't know. They have no idea. They just think that this stuff just comes from nowhere. They just think, because here's the reality behind it. You think people are going to work for other people that don't work? That's called slavery, dude. Like that sounds a lot like slavery to me. Hold on. I'm going to work my butt off and get the same as John down the street who doesn't work? I don't freaking think so, dude. And then that's where civil wars, because resentment it builds. And that other word that's very dangerous besides resentment. And I can't think of that word right now, but you probably know what I'm talking about. That is exactly the problem with it. So I think it's cute. I think it's funny. I think look, these guys have no teeth, because eventually what ends up happening is it all collapses. Look, it all collapses. And then for anybody to sit here and think they're better, they could do communism better than Chairman Mao, or better do communism and socialism better than Stalin or Lenin or any of these guys, you're freaking fooling yourselves.
Yeah, I agree.
But here's the sad reality behind it. At the end of the day, all of these, I won't say the word, but all these people, I want to call them the MOFO word. All these people that do this stuff, and the people that champion and go, blah, 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 right? You know who you're talking about. You're absolutely right, Len. What they ought to do is they ought to go listen and go watch the Star Spangled Banner, because they ought to know that there are boys and men that piled on top of dead bodies, their sisters, their brothers, their neighbors, their cousins, their moms, or whatever, their uncles, they all piled on top of each other to keep that flag standing up while the British were bombing the crap out of it. Keep that flag up. Is this flag still standing? Is the flag still standing? You know how that flag stood up. That flag didn't stand up because it was stuck in the ground or cemented in the ground. It stood up because people kept dying on it to hold it up. And then when the bodies got too much, they would pull the dead bodies away and more people would sit on it to keep the flag up. So every single day, Mondami should get up and kiss the freaking ground in New York and thank the people that died there, that he'll never know. For him to do some radical pet project with the city of the purse, with the money and the taxes that him and his constituents and his allies will never understand how to create, and never will. Because they're not business people and entrepreneurs. They're terrorists. They're hijackers of a system. And that's okay. Because see, the reality is they know that stuff. They know our system is free, open, and honest. And one thing I can tell you about a free and open and honest system, it always exposes the crooks. And I don't mean crooks and terrorists in the normal sense that you might, he called it. No, I don't mean that. Terrorists to the system that produces equality for people. Because communism and socialism doesn't create equality for people. It creates slavery for people. It creates restrictions for people. It takes away. And see, that's what these guys ought to do. They ought to kiss the freaking ground that they can even try to do their pet projects. Because if they tried to do this crap in any other country, they'd be killed and executed. And you know it, Len. If Mondami tried to do this stuff in Iran, if America operated the way Iran did, he'd be killed on day one. And you know it. Everybody knows it. And that's why I think it'll never work. Because at the end of the day, we know that crap doesn't work. And there's no heart and soul in the American culture to ever accept that. And our system will automatically root it out. I got a little passionate there, Len, but
No, I think
it had to be. That's just my perspective, and I don't think they're going to win because I don't think they're ever going to take. They might, and these things have happened. If you go back in American history, you've always had these turmoils where all of a sudden they try to do it here, they try to bring it here. There's a lot of rich and powerful people. You saw that guy that just got arrested. The FBI took him down. I don't remember his name right now, but he was like 10 years for the last 10 years. He's been sponsoring. He's a billionaire, sponsoring socialist and communist groups inside the United States to usurp the United States. I'll tell you his name right now. He just got. It was a big thing. And then I'll turn it over to you, Len.
Okay, so while you're looking that up, tell me his name once you find it. But I want to respond to what you're saying. So I think that people who are charismatic, like Mamdani,
Jody Evans, co-founder of Code Pink, and Neville Roy Singham, founder of ThoughtWorks. So I don't think it's the Jody Evans, it's the Neville Roy Singham.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. Grand jury. He presented evidence to the grand jury, which has issued subpoenas seeking bank records and other financial documents from an organization in Singham's network. Federal prosecutors use the grand jury subpoenas as an investigation tool to complete the documents. So this guy right here has been sponsoring Marxism and all this crap in the United States for 10 plus years. He's tied to China, all this stuff. They caught him. They took him down. See, all this stuff, it doesn't work here. We don't want that crap here. We don't see it. But anyways, I'll turn it over to you, Len.
And I agree that long term we don't want it. But I think the challenge that every society has is there's going to be larger numbers of people who struggle than those who are prosperous. And those large numbers of people who struggle in a democratic society, in a democratic country, we run the risk of widespread ignorance. And so what happens is that because we are driven by our own desires, our own personal needs, and we couple that with not really understanding what it is that we really, really want and how to get it. Because when I say we're lazy, what I mean is human beings are inherently lazy. I'm inherently lazy.
All of us are.
Right. But I have something that stops me from being lazy because I prefer having a better, more prosperous life. So the price I pay for that is subjecting my laziness. But in the situation where people don't have the incentive or the desire to subject their laziness, which is perfectly fine. Everybody has the ability to make their own choices. Here's though the consequence of that choice. What happens is that we rely on other people to tell us how to think, and we rely on other people to tell us how to feel and what to believe. And what happens is we open ourselves up to be victims of propaganda. And so people like Mamdani who say, okay, look, I saw him doing an interview and he's so intelligent. I don't think he's inherently a bad guy. Like, I don't think you and I don't look at him as, okay, he's a socialist and so therefore he's bad or he has malevolent intent. I don't believe that. Now, he may prove me wrong.
Is that the opposite of benevolent?
Benevolent and malevolent. Yeah. So malintent and benevolent.
Malintent and benevolent. I like that. All right.
Yeah. So I don't believe that he's inherently a bad guy. What I do believe is that he allows his charisma and he's a wonderful, well-spoken, charismatic speaker, and he's also a phenomenal marketer. So what he did is he went to some apartment complexes in New York and took cakes and said, happy rent freeze. And then he cut the cake and distributed to people, and they had the camera crew there. The people are like, man, thank you so much. This moratorium on rent, I'm on a fixed income. Thank you so much. And it's a heartwarming story. And so if I didn't understand that that's propaganda, I would be on the side of like, oh my gosh, he's doing amazing things for the people and all of this. Now, here's the thing. Politicians do this all the time. They only tell us what they want us to hear because they understand that the overwhelming majority of us will not take the time to fact check them, to research, to figure out our own position based on our own set of beliefs, values, and assumptions. And because of that, we all end up as a society becoming the victims of sheeple. People who just follow whatever they're told because they choose to believe somebody. I'll wrap up with this example. So there are two comedians, right? And so one comedian on a completely different show was like a right-leaning comedian. There's another comedian who's on a completely different show, left-leaning comedian, right? And so the right-leaning comedian goes to this Biden rally, and he's like, "Hey, I wanted to talk to you about this policy X, policy Y, policy Z." And they said, "Hey, that Biden created." And they're like, "Oh, that's just a terrible, terrible policy." And it's like, "Well, that's actually Trump's policy." Mm-hmm. And then another comedian in a different group's like, "Hey, what do you think about all the people who were deported by Trump? There were this many people that were deported and this many people that were deported. What do you think about that?" And they were like, "Oh, that's terrible. He's doing all he can." But actually those numbers were under Obama. And then they switched. And then what happened, my point in bringing this up is that when you're not educated about your own position, you align with who your hero is, and you change the narrative to justify how you feel about a policy based on that person's stance. So if it's a person that you disagree with, no matter what they say or what they do, you will disagree with it because it's that person. And likewise, if it's a person that you agree with, no matter what they say or what they do, you will always agree with it because you've made it in your mind to agree with that person. It's a very interesting thing that my wife taught me. It's called cognitive dissonance. And it's a fancy word that says, I have a certain worldview, right? And everything I look at through the world is through those lenses or those glasses. Now, something can come in and interrupt that pattern, and it shakes me up. Now, if it's a person who's really seeking to learn and be objective and really search for truth, they'll wrestle with that cognitive dissonance to try to come up with a more truthful, aligned narrative. But the overwhelming majority of people, unfortunately, Chris, when they encounter cognitive dissonance, they barrel right through it because they just want to make sure that their narrative is correct. That's why I know that as this channel gets bigger, there are going to be people that hate what you say that sometimes and love what you say at other times. There are going to be people that hate what I say sometimes and love what I say at other times. Here's the reason why. Because one thing that I can tell you, I won't speak for you, but the one thing that I can tell you that my ultimate goal, as I mentioned earlier, is I want to know truth, man. I want to seek truth. I don't want to just be right for argument's sake. And so there are some things that Trump does that are good. My baseline of thinking is that he is a self-centered narcissist who does what he does for the benefit of himself and other people in his sphere that bow down to him. That's my frame of reference. However, I'm not going to be so blindsided and myopic to say that everything he says and everything he does is a lie and bad. I think that's objectively not true. And I just think, that I think our world would be better if we had more people who are really seeking out the truth and can live with two conflicting, confrontational realities at the same time. Like, I don't particularly like him as a person, but that doesn't mean that that everything he says or does is inherently bad. Right. And I get you. Yeah.
And that's, I think you could say the same for anybody. I mean, if you look at Joseph Stalin, and you study Joseph Stalin, I'm a big Robert Greene fan. I know you've read a lot of his stuff, and as you look at Joseph Stalin, he switched, he changed. I mean, Joseph Stalin was a very congeal, very nice, very comforting, very warm person, and then when he got into this power and did what he got, he became this totally different. He became this monster, right?
Yeah, and
that just I think just speaks to the ideal or to the truth of human nature, and that is that look, the Constitution is genius because it governs human nature. And when you look at socialism and communism here, you're relying on a group of people to have this ultra realistic view and be gods, so to speak, and control the means of production. I mean, all you have to do right now is look at the way city councils are ran, and look at California politics, and look at left leaning blue states that are in debt. And look at the way these people run these states and realize and understand, bro, you don't want more of that. You really, really don't. And I think the most telling thing is I just recently saw this. There was an exchange between J.D. Vance and Bill Maher. And Bill Maher openly said, he said, the people that I vote for, I can't get them to come and sit down with me. Obama, Mondami, you name it, the list goes on. I can't get these people to come and talk to me. But the conservative viewpoints and the libertarian viewpoints and the opposing viewpoints, they all come and talk. They all want to come and talk to me. They all want to, as he said it, they come and take their lashings, right? Doesn't that tell you something? Because if you don't want to come and even talk to the people that vote for you, that have power, that here's the problem. The reason why they don't want to come and talk to someone like Bill Maher is because they know Bill Maher is going to have an intellectual, non-BS, non-spin zone conversation with them and ask them pointed questions. And that's the biggest problem. Is all these romantic gestures and all these great terms of endearment and virtues that we throw out there on the opposing side that want the free buses and the government control and the government be bigger and all these things. Then when they ask the tough questions of how are you going to do it, that's when they all fall apart, because ultimately they always have the same solution. We're going to take more money from the rich people and we're going to control prices and we're going to keep things like this.
Somebody's got to pay for that.
Have you seen the DMV lately? Name one, name any of them. And then furthermore, have you seen the industries that the government has propped up? The auto industry. I would say
the only industry that the government's done well, and you could probably argue it, postal. I think they've done pretty well.
The postal service sucks, Len. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a UPS and a FedEx.
No. I'm talking local mail. Like, I'm not talking international.
But I think look at a degree,
like cost wise, I mean, like I know if I put something in the mail, if I send it to you, it's going to get there. And they're going to do it at a fraction of the price.
Largely, but it's again,
I'm trying to find good in something generally that I see as bad. Okay, that's the point.
Look. At the end of the day, the postal service is great. By and large, I think the postal service works. I really do. But at the same time, it is hemorrhaging and losing money. So, and I don't, and who knows who knows the real reason behind that. The reality is that government programs and government run anything don't work, because at the end of the day, there has to be an incentive, because at the end of the day, the operator is the human being. So when a Mondami gets up here and says, happy rent control, you're absolutely right, Len, that is propaganda, because that's just like, I have a cold. Here's some Vicks NyQuil. That just masks the symptom. Instead, what he ought to be doing is going, here's a program that the government's going to help to pay for, because this is a relevant job and a relevant career that's going to pay you $150,000, $200,000 in the next 15, 20 years. Into the next, what I mean by that is into the next 10, 15 years. See, that's what the government ought to be doing. It's like when I tell you AOC was speaking the other day, and AOC was speaking saying, because she was talking about the CHIPS Act, right? And they're going, because of all this stuff now with these AI companies and the data centers and she was saying, these data centers are so evil and they're stealing everybody's electricity and they're making the prices higher and and all these things about, because, and at the time, data centers have been around since long before she was even in Congress. Data centers have been around for 20 years. They're just proliferating because AI requires a lot of compute power.
Right.
Okay. But what she fails to understand on the other side of all of this stuff is when you look at it and you go, she's talking about, well, this is the best thing when she said this, when we passed the CHIPS, because the person's, well, the CHIPS Act, right? But when we passed the CHIPS Act, right, we didn't think that it was going to have all this effect on all these data centers. I'm going, you do not sound like you know anything right now. Wait a minute. Aren't you this ultra realistic politician that knows all these things and is going to save us from the evils of capitalism? You mean to tell me you didn't know that this was going to happen? Isn't it your job to have forethought? Isn't it your job to sit there and go, I wonder what will happen if we pass this legislation? I wonder what will happen if this happens. See, that's the problem. All these
we don't
democratic
look at the world through cause and effect,
dude.
That's
all these, all of these politicians, they don't play the long game in the chess game because that's the human condition. You don't think about the long consequences of the East India. I'm probably naming it wrong, but back in England, the East India Shore Trading Company, right? When they were allowing to do, it's a fascinating thing, Len. You probably know what I'm talking about. You study it. Were they allowed to do leverage or buyouts, sell debt in the form of the government debt to citizens, right? In the form of stocks, right? And they did, I forget the technical term for it, and they did this and eventually it created these bubbles, right? And these debt bubbles. They don't ever play the long game here with this, the unintended consequences. So at the end of the day, it's a friend in need is a pest indeed, right? so having, that's why you see alliances get, going back a little bit when we were talking about, that's why you see America get in trouble with alliances or anybody get in trouble with these alliances, because all of a sudden your friend in need, you're aligned to them. So you got to back them up if they get in trouble. And you're like, crap, bro, you're doing bad crap. And I got to back you up no matter what. So, and I think that's another reason why Trump hates NATO so much, because we constantly have to be messy. We have no choice, Len. We always have to be messy because we're in these unilateral treaties with people. And then the people that we're with treaties with, when it comes time to get their hands dirty, they don't want to get their hands dirty. It's just like socialists and communists. Everything's going to be great until we got to roll up their sleeves and spend spend their own money or make their own resources. And that's where this all crashes and burns. So
I agree.
I wish we had more time, Len, because I think we have a few other things we're going to talk about today, but,
yeah, I think we can table them till next week. There's so much depth to the conversations that we've been having, man. And so,
and I don't want to skirt a lot of that, because I do want to talk about the last couple of things that we did, and
for sure.
Because I have some stuff that I actually looked at. I thought we were going to go more long into that, but I can. Let's make this promise to each other.
All right.
Unless anything groundbreaking happens, we're not going to talk about Iran next week.
Okay, deal.
Unless
I have a feeling something groundbreaking is going to happen, man. So, but yes, we're
going to keep it to 15 minutes next week
for sure. Let's do that.
All right,
for sure.
But outside of that, again, the whole premise behind this is walking away from this and saying, yeah, you need to have these conversations and find someone or a group that you can have these conversations with, like we said earlier, because we understand the baseline. We're seeking to understand the baseline so that I can essentially do a really cool magic trick and kind of jump into Len's body and see the world through his eyes for free. Because that's really what we're trying to do. And obviously, yes, at the same time, seek truth, because there is a lot of BS going on backsides. So Len, I'll throw it over to you to close us out.
Absolutely. I would say, to jump on Chris's point is understand the person that you're talking to, their baseline, so you can gather a clear understanding of their perspective. And then also think for yourself. Look at the world through cause and effect and first principles. When you look at a cause, this is something that's being done. Why is that something being done? That's the cause. What's the effect? That thing gets done. What happens as a result of that? And what is the link of logic that goes from cause to effect to cause to effect? And if you carry that logical path to its end, at least as far as you can cognitively think about it, it gives you much more of a holistic view of how the world works and also why people do what they do. If you look at the world just through emotions, you will never come to a logical conclusion, because those two things cannot carry the same space. They can't exist in the same space. So find people that you disagree with, look at the world through cause and effect, and you will have so much more clarity in your life. And that's one of the things that we try to exhibit here. Even though we ultimately disagree with each other, we can still have civil conversations with each other. So if you like the content, please like it. If you have an idea, please share. And certainly if you have ideas that you want us to talk about, put those comments on there, and we look for ideas for new content. With that being said, Chris, it's always a pleasure, man. Have a great one till next time.
Conversation has given you clarity on your next steps. Please share this episode with someone who's walking the same path. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss future episodes. And remember, planning ahead isn't just prudent, it's an act of care. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Family Office.